limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Ship for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In our first hour, our weekly conversations with Atiba and his guests, Tara Robinson and Matthew McCurdy, we're going to talk about Black Health Heart while we're at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Legislative Weekend. Stress is real, and you can save anything. You really can't save anything until you save your own life. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He is a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. He's worked on the TV political for BNC News, The Heat in the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, GovExec 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. He most recently was a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C. political newspaper The Hill. In 2020, Atiba released his first novel, Saving Grace, a political thriller. Atiba, welcome forward to the Conversations with Atiba on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's always good to be with you, and thank you for that nice introduction.
I appreciate you very much. There's so much going on in the world, and I know that we have two very special guests who will be joining us in this hour. But I do have a question that I'd like to ask you just before we really do get underway. And that is, both of us have attended Congressional Black Caucus weekends and legislative weekends over the course of our lives for a number of years. A confluence of events and a number of things are coming together in the nation's body politic. In your opinion, Atiba, what makes this Congressional Black Caucus legislative weekend unlike any other?
It's a family reunion. It's an opportunity for us to come together and talk with each other and have a meeting of the minds. And hopefully come out of this with some thoughts and some ideas that can help us move forward, not just in terms of policy, but in terms of community. I don't know, I'm saying that, are you having a hard time hearing me?
I'm getting a little buffering from you, and I'm just going to ask you to speak a little bit slower until we get to the break.
Okay. So as I was saying, it's a family reunion. And it's a chance for us to get together and have a meeting of the minds and kind of regroup and go back out after we leave the caucus and address some of the pressing issues that are confronting us today.
I think that's right, and I think that's probably well stated. Our emphasis and the emphasis that you wanted to place on the show this week has to do with heart health and the stress that we're under.
Yeah, I have actually, and apologies if we're having a bad connection. We're in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., being family. And we just were part of an amazing and brilliant conversation with that included Representative Congressman Conaway, Congressman Steve Horford came and spoke and shared that he has heart disease. And also the representative from Tennessee, the president of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, Harold Love, also spoke. And then we also got to hear from people who are also advocates and shared their stories. It was very, very insightful, and I'm looking forward to them joining our conversation, I think, when we come back after the break.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Conversations with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Atiba when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com. If you have a 2004 or newer vehicle that's out of warranty or about to be, Endurance is urgently notifying U.S. drivers about their low-cost vehicle coverage plan designed to save drivers thousands on rising vehicle repair costs. Those who qualify can pick their plan, coverage, and repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental cars included. All covered repairs get paid directly to the repair shop for you. Call now for your free quote. Call 800-373-7519. That's 800-373-7519.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward. Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, we want to focus on our personal wellness and our health, particularly our heart health. There's so much stress. Heart attacks are on the rise. So much of it comes from the existential threats that exist in our space, our jobs, we take care of ourselves, what we eat, how we live. All of these are factors in the body of our lives and the central nervous system of our existence. And so today we want to focus on how we handle some of that stress, how we take care of the pump, the heart, that is responsible for blood flow and for activity within our bodies and our spirits and how we feel about things in our space. Some of it is a function of being able to breathe and just taking our time and counting the space between our breaths so that we can focus on who we are. My very special guest in this hour is Atiba. Atiba is an author. He is also one of our great contributors on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'd like to bring Atiba forward, but I think Atiba may very well still be buffering from his location to be on the show this afternoon. I do know that he's bringing two very, very special guests onto the program with us as well. I'm certainly hoping that, that we can connect to them directly. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I think you're still buffering. Can you hear me?
Hey, Jesse, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you better.
Okay,
Atiba,
great.
let's dive right into the introduction of our guests.
So, yeah, I want to introduce two people. First, Matthew McCurdy, who is the co-founder and executive director of Black Health. Black Health is a Black-led 501c3 nonprofit that's based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and focused on advancing health equity communities through anti-racist education, advocacy, research, and programs. And our second guest is Tara Robinson. She is a survivor, CEO, and co-founder of the Black Heart Association. After surviving 3 heart attacks, she transformed her testimony into a movement bringing free heart health screenings to underserved communities. She's backed by Amgen. Her newest mission is to screen 10,000 people, continuing to save lives and inspire hope.
Matthew and Tara, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I can see now that your microphone has been muted. If you could unmute your microphone, Matthew. Tara, welcome forward to our show.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to allow Atiba to conduct most of our interview. Atiba, our very special guests are exciting. Matthew, obviously, you want to hear the context within which African Americans are struggling with heart ailments, heart disease, and why having a healthy heart is so important to the existence in our community.
Thank you, Jesse. So, this afternoon we were at the Congressional Black Caucus, as I was mentioning before we went to the break. And while we were there, during the panel discussion, we had a profound, amazing conversation. And when I say inspiring in terms of, we often talk about problems, but this was like really talking about what is the solution to some of the ways to go forward and protecting our health. And so, Matthew and Tara, first off, I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I know you guys have a very, very busy schedule now during the Congressional Black Caucus. And if folks could see us back screen, they would see that we are not crammed, but we're actually in a hotel room across the street from the convention center. So I want to give you guys that picture of what's going on, because this issue is very important. And so we were able to get them to come away from the convention center where there were just so many people who wanted to talk to them, interview them, about what's going on. But I want to start first, if you're okay, Matthew. I want to start with Tara. Tara, if you could tell us, what brought you into this space. Tell us. I know you have a profound story, but what is it that you and your organization are doing? And then also, if you could tell us how you came into the space.
First of all, thank you guys for having me and Matthew. I came into this space simply because I didn't want anyone to walk in my shoes. I wanted my community to be alert and aware that heart disease is very prevalent, and that what we're facing in the healthcare system is unfortunately unfair. And so how can we prevent these things? How can we be more proactive than reactive? And so we started Black Heart Association because we no longer wanted to talk about it. We wanted to be about it. Y'all know that saying in our community, right? So that's who we are. We are about action. We're about applying knowledge and in that moment while we have that community member in front of us. So this mission to screen 10,000 is near and dear to my heart, because that means we get to save an individual, a family, and then a community.
And Matthew, you're in Atlanta, Georgia. You're the co-founder and executive director of About Black Health. Can you tell us also what brought you into this space and some of the work that you all are doing?
Yeah, Black Health was really started out of frustration, right? We were upset about how Black communities were being educated, taught, resourced around health. And we thought that we could build something better that feels more like our community, that is more human-centered, but also, centers the experience and needs of Black people. For so long, our healthcare systems, including healthcare, hospitals, but even our public health systems have really not centered the needs of our people. And so our goal is really to create space through partnerships and resources to be able to deliver health information to our community in ways that feel culturally safe.
Matthew, let me ask you a question, if I might. One of the experiences that I had serving on the Labor, Health, and Human Services Committee on the appropriations in the Congress, we looked at an Institute of Medicine study that said one of the bases for the preventive nature of illness in the Black community is the fact that there weren't enough primary care physicians, African Americans, in the Black community to meet the caseloads of the number of African Americans who need care. And if there were one factor, which we argued effectively in the Congress to the point that we were able to elevate the Office of Research on Minority Health at NIH to an institute, was that Black people and people of color tend to look for physicians who look like them to discuss their health issues, to discuss their ailments, and they tend to trust them in ways that they don't trust other people in other populations who might be practicing medicine or providing care. To what extent is the heart crisis in our community directly related, from your perspective, to the creation, or if you will, the production or the graduation rates of African Americans from medical schools so that they can come back to their communities and provide the kind of care necessary to make that difference?
Yeah, I think it has a huge impact on the outcomes of Black people. What the data also shows is that not only is there better trust, is there more comfort when people have physicians that look like them, there's also better outcomes, right? That physician is more likely to understand where they're coming from, what barriers they may face that prevent them from having the health or the health care that they desire. And so I do think having more Black physicians matriculate through medical school is super important. That's why, the Howards of the world, the Maharis of the world are very important as we want to leave out Xavier, who graduates the most physicians. I don't want to leave them out. It's important for us to have more Black and brown physicians so that we can get sort of that culturally resonant care that then can lead to better outcomes at the end of the day, because that's the goal, is to save lives and to prevent illness.
Tara, for those 10,000 patients or African American incidences of heart care that your organization and you're now attracted to trying to create, the extent to which African American doctors, women, and others can participate in that call from you, how significant is that?
Oh, it's very significant. We look for those partnerships. We desire those partnerships like we have currently with Association of Black Cardiologists. We work with doctors in and around our bus. We have mobile units that we send out into the community. And so they get an opportunity to come out without their coats on and engage with the community without the titles, just having a human to human experience. And those community members end up going back and becoming their patients. So it's a win-win. And so it's a full circle moment for us to support each other better and to save lives. And so we invite those doctors to come out and serve alongside of us all the time.
I
also want to include Morehouse School of Medicine.
Yes,
I'm in Atlanta, and I would get a lot of heat for that. So Morehouse School of Medicine as well.
Atiba?
Yeah. Since I think 2003, I've worked in a space that's often is used, health disparities is the term. And I remember being involved when I was working for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators and being asked to meet to talk about a program that was called Healthy People 2020. And what strikes me is that today in 2025, 20 plus years later, and I'm aging myself there, that we're still talking about the same things. We're still talking about cultural incompetency. We're still talking about social determinants of health. We're still talking about access. We're still talking about a lack of African American, Hispanic, and Latino doctors. I want to ask the question, what is it that we can do differently? But I think we continue doing the same things and trying and hoping for a different result. If you were to be thinking outside of the box right now, what would some of those strategies be if you had like I remember when I was a kid, Jesse, you probably remember this because we're the older people in this group, picking up the Sears Roebuck
for yourself
catalog. The Sears catalog and kind of like going through it, and it was a wish book. What would be your wish, like outside the box? And it could be just eradicating racism. I just really want, but what would be your wish on your wish list in terms of how to address this and change the direction and improve health outcomes?
What would be on my wish list? Oh my God, I think it's too long to even name one specific thing. But if I had to name a thing, I would say healthcare for everyone. I would definitely say more STEM schools and education for our kids and encouraging them to go into these fields of science, but also showing that in our community more scientists, more doctors. So that would be my wish list to kind of eradicate, because the more we see and the more our children begin to experience it, others in these fields, then we can begin to build that pipeline that we need to go into these fields that are so urgent and critical for our communities.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we need better access to education, so free education, free policy training. I think we also have to teach people how to advocate. I think change happens at the policy level, but so many people aren't engaging with our policy systems, and so we have to really create ground level organizing around that. On my wish list as well is to duplicate Terra, right? How can we get more community organizers who are trying to remove healthcare out of hospitals and out of clinics and into the community, right? How can we go to where people are? And I think if we have more people thinking about healthcare and sort of saving lives in a more entrepreneurial way, I think we can get people into care faster and more efficiently.
I want to. I don't want to be the big bad guy in the room, but I do want to raise the political reality that we have someone at Health and Human Services who has shown a kind of disdain for science, a disdain for facts and statistics, and that's for the broader population, let alone willing to hear an argument on what's going on in communities that are disparately impacted by the lack of care, the lack of funding, the lack of medical services, healthcare services, and a wholesale dismantling in some ways of the health infrastructure of the nation by returning power to the states and no more central federal coordination of that power under this administration. Matthew and Tara, I don't see how it gets better in the short run. And then even when we think, for example, about the COVID, I mean, we were losing our lives faster and quicker than anyone during the COVID, and the country hadn't even reacted until they began realizing just how it began impacting people beyond African American communities and the poor. So your thoughts on some of the difficulties, Tara, in your life mission, your obligations and your learning experiences, and Matthew, where this is going in an environment where the lack of federal coordination could be profoundly challenging to our efforts to provide better care.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question and a reality of the current situation, right? And what we see now is states sort of mobilizing together, out west of California, we have the Northeast sort of creating these health commissions or health areas, and that leaves out the South, right, where we know most Black people are living. And so the stakes are really at a high time right now. I think the solution again is really around realizing that this moment is temporary and that the actions that are being taken can be undone. It's going to take sort of, again, community organizing and mobilizing, and then at the end of the day, voting. And then I think, when we think about the pipelines to your earlier question, we do have to create more pipelines for people to get the education. And not all education has to lead to a degree, but if we educate people on what's happening in community, I think mobilizing people, and me as an activist, my answer is always going to be organizing and mobilizing.
Atiba, we have about 3 minutes before we come forward after Tara. Tara, go ahead.
As I think about it, I'm always encouraged, and I always say we have to create our own systems of care to take care of each other. I like to think of myself as a Harriet Tubman in this field. Nobody's doing what Black Heart is doing, and nobody's attacking it like Black Health. So coming together in partnerships like Black Health, Amgen, and Black Heart, we have to create our own systems of care. We need more Black Hearts across the nation. We need more Black health across the nation. All these organizations that are working in silos have to come together in order to put our brains together and say, how do we do this? Our ancestors did this. They did it well, and learning and taking those lessons and applying it for us and just modeling, again, creating our own systems where we can empower our communities to come together and take care of each other, and including those doctors in the process.
Atiba, we have about a minute and a half before we come forward.
Yeah, after COVID, well, let me go back. During COVID, we saw people not going to the doctor as often. So we saw the number of screenings go down. Now with post-COVID, in terms of pandemic, in terms of quarantining, what have you, I guess 3.5 years later, in terms of the work that you all are doing, are you seeing the outcomes of what was happening during COVID and with the lack of screenings? And when we come back from the break, if we can go a little bit into this, And what is it that we can do to try to accelerate that? Because unfortunately, we can't go back to the past and change what was there. But also, what are some lessons that we may have learned from there that can help us in terms of moving forward to accelerate the number of people that are getting screened so that we don't fall back into that same.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wednesdays with Atiba. Our conversations today include A Healthy Heart. Matthew and Tara are our very special guest. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580 on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is marking a major milestone in the city's bike network. Chicago is set to top 500 miles of bike lanes this year.
The city of Chicago has installed more than 100 miles of new bikeways.
CDOT also resurfaced Milwaukee Avenue between Kinsey and Chicago Avenue, adding new concrete protected lanes on one of the city's busiest cycling routes. Free tours of the Obama Presidential Center and Chicago's Jackson Park begin Tuesday. Visitors can view renderings, walk the site, and ask questions. The center is set to open in spring 2026. And Megan Thee Stallion's lawyers want a judge to force DJ Academics to reveal how he got sealed evidence from Tory Lanez trial. They believe Lanez leaked DNA reports that were misrepresented online. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. 2 of the 5 African-American head coaches in the NFL are still looking for their first win of the season. Aaron Glenn of the New York Jets and D'Amico Ryan of the Houston Texans are 0-3. Glenn is in his first season with the Jets. Houston's slow start is a surprise. Ryan had Houston in the semifinals last season in the AFC playoffs. Houston is at home Sunday against Tennessee. The Jets are at Miami on Sunday. Tampa Bay coach Todd Bowles is the only one of the 5 who was undefeated after week 3. The Bucs are at home Sunday against the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Major props to University of South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. The 3-time national champion coach included 2 HBCU teams on her schedule for this season. A home game against North Carolina Central on December 7th and a road game at Coppin State in Baltimore on January 18th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 15. Listen to Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Show. Our conversations with Atiba. Today, his guests are Tara Robinson and Matthew McCurdy. We're going to be talking about Black Heart Health while we're at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Legislative Weekend. The stress is real. It is killing us, and you can't say anything until you save yourself. I'm going to be very honest with you as we prepare to bring Atiba forward and to bring our guest back forward. These are stressful times, and I could never have imagined just how much stress emanates from the political debate in our country and how everyone feels some type of way about this. The pressure that we're feeling in our chests, in our hearts is real. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Atiba, I think you have your mute button on. I think you still do. I think that's the F4
Yeah,
key.
sorry. Well,
Atiba, I
trying
can,
to test the
I can hear you. You sound so much better, Atiba.
Okay, sorry about that, Jesse.
Not a problem, Atiba.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, my question was that we are living in extremely stressful times. African Americans, as you know, are dying disproportionately in every conceivable health category. And as we turn our attention to Healthy Heart with Matthew and with Tara, we've got to take better care of ourselves. I mean, the stress that we feel, the pressure that we feel is real. And it's existential in a large way, because I could have never imagined that the administrative government policies and behaviors could actually make me feel the way I feel every morning when I wake up. Atiba,
Yeah,
your thoughts?
that's an interesting piece, and thank you for that, Jesse, because I remember, first of all, from 2017 till January 20th, 2021, I used to wake up every morning looking at my phone, looking at Twitter, like, what happened last night? That's stressful, right? Because you don't
Yes, it
know.
is.
And then I like to use the term that the issues are in our tissues. So whether or not it's mental or physical, there are things that have been passed on to us from generation to generation. This is why when we go to the doctor asks you for your medical history. But we don't talk enough about our psychological history, or what it's like living in a neighborhood where you're constantly hearing the siren of a car, or what it's like. I know you sometimes when we're on the show, you'll post a picture of my book. And in my book, what I'm actually talking about is environmental injustice, and that there are things that are in our air and our water, and people call it the social determinants of health, those things that are outside of our control. So, in terms of all these things, there's so many things politically, so many things dramatically that are impacting us. But some of them, I believe, that come up in us because we do have these issues in our tissues where our minds, our hearts, and our bodies remember something that's within our genetic makeup. And that said, you know, what before the break, I was asking the question about what happened during COVID in terms of people not getting screened. And where I was wanting to go with the question, Tara and Matthew, was, what did you see, and what impact, we're talking about trauma, what impact did that put on you all in terms of additional weight, in terms of the advocacy and the policy and the things, the work that you're doing, in terms of the work, in terms of addressing the health outcomes that unfortunately came not just because of COVID, but because there was a decreased number of people that were going to get screened for various diseases?
So our mobile unit was actually birthed during COVID, I think it's 2019 or toward the end of that. And so we all, at that point, we knew that getting doctors outside of the walls of their doctor's office was important, but engaging our community at their doorstep was also important. And it built trust quickly. So I think what we learned during COVID for me was that although it was like surprise to so many people about the health inequities that were happening, for us as Black Americans, it's always been there. And COVID just continued to show that gap was there. So with Black Heart, we started showing up in places that our community were at protests, because it was the height of George Floyd and all those other things were going on. So we know that if a pandemic happens again, that we are already ready to engage our community, jump in our mobile units and hit the road and serve and grab some doctors and say, get on this bus, so that we can go take care of our community, because that's really what it is. And so I think more of that is needed, that we have to get outside of those church walls and do the work in the streets. And so I just think we have to continue to support mobile units, and continue to just beat the pavement like we always have, and how we have always engaged. We are currently located in the Dallas area. We have a bus in Dallas that handles a 200-mile radius. We also have a bus now in Houston that also handles a 200-mile radius. Trying to go to Georgia and hang out with Black Health, just go through that Black Belt and put buses there, because that's where the true impact and the true change is. So we're ready.
But let me also go back to that. Mm-hmm. How do you address fear?
So how do you address fear in our community? One is by being yourself and by caring, by showing up. If I don't know who people, okay, there's a saying, I don't care what you know until I know that you care. Mm-hmm. And when I show up on a street across from where Tatiana Jefferson was murdered at her home, but I'm showing up on the street to screen those people who are now stressed out because of all the things that had happened around that case. And we're talking about health, and we're talking about stress, and we're talking about how this moment impacted their lives. That's trust. Now I can pull back up. Now I can take them to go vote. I can go get them to do anything because they know that I care. And that's how we remove that fear, by showing up in these unexpected places and delivering care.
And Matthew, I know we're talking about heart, but there's some other areas too that your organization addresses.
Yeah, we're working across a number of different disease states, including colorectal cancer, lung cancer. We're also thinking about diabetes, but really trying to understand some of the structural forces that lead to the health inequities that we're seeing, right? So we're talking about access to healthcare. We know that Black people are underinsured or uninsured in higher amounts. And so we're also thinking about how can we create the communities where people have access to the preventative measures so that we don't have to go to the doctor so often, right? What does a healthy community look like, right? Access to healthy food, walkable communities where there's safe places to exercise and get out and move your body, right? And so if we can create communities and leverage our policies and advocacy to create healthier communities, then we don't have to have the over-reliance on healthcare if we're not as sick, right? And so the work is really about creating environments where people can be healthy, where they can thrive, and removing some of that injustice as well. So yeah, that work is complex and difficult, but I do think moving towards a more public health focus rather than a healthcare focus is how we can create healthier communities and our over-reliance on healthcare.
And we deal in different states too. We deal with diabetes, kidney cancer, prostate, to be exact. I think, Matthew, you should sit on our board. I think we should cross boards. But yeah, so this cross, we're both passionate about our communities, and I just love that I can just be like, oh, yes, all the things. But yeah, this is how we come together. These conversations is how we drive change.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580, more with Conversations with Atiba when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Seems like there's more identity theft in the news every day.
Another major healthcare breach was reported today, resulting in the exposure of 1 in 4 consumers have been a victim of identity.
That's because there are endless places that could accidentally expose you to identity theft, in a breach, or simply by mistake. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Moving forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is our Wealthy Wednesday conversations with Atiba, and his guests in this past hour have been Tara Robinson and Matthew McCurdy. We're going to be talking about, and we have been talking about Black heart health while we're at the Congressional Black Caucus, discussing the stress that we feel and suggesting that it's real. Now, I do want to just make a policy. I want to throw something out at you guys on this policy question, Atiba. And again, thank you for Tara and thank you for Matthew and their participation in our show today. And please note that you're always welcome back. The 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed not because Southerners, where Tara has these buses operating, believed in Black equality or freedom. The legislation passed because we tied the 1964 Civil Rights Act to a transportation bill. In other words, the good old boys down there wanted highways, they wanted byways, they wanted bridges, and we attached the 1964 Civil Rights Act to it, and it's known as the 1964 Civil Rights Act, but it was attached to the highway bill. And I'm thinking in this moment that when we think about, Tara expanding her mobile services, not only to Black communities, but to rural communities who are also going to be feeling the pain of losing federal programs that provide rural health, we're going to quickly find out, Tara, that the relationship between what we're experiencing in urban communities, poor and working class, hoodwinked Americans in red states and red counties are going to be experiencing the same thing we've been experiencing if they haven't been experiencing it already, which means at some point in time, these mobile services, we may learn how to effectively use them in our community and expand them, but we're going to end up, and you're going to end up leading some kind of national organization as these hospitals close and mobile services are in rural counties, just like there are in urban counties and urban cities and urban dwellings. And I'm just wondering, from a policy perspective here at the CBC, it's very difficult to pass Black health initiatives. It's kind of like the DEI of healthcare. They just throw all kinds of stuff at it, even though the disparities and the science are real. But the reality is When we do argue, and one day we will argue the expansion of your business and the expansion of the good work that both you and Matthew are providing, it seems to me that we're going to have to tie it to some problems that are also beyond our community if we're going to get the good old boys who are hearing from their constituents to join us and recognize that their people have some of the same ailments that we do. Tara, Matthew?
Matthew.
I think that there's a double microphone on somewhere. Tara?
Okay. I think as you were asking, I was trying to really search my Rolodex, like what issues could we attach to across the across the line that they might experience, and vice versa. I'm really trying to think, and I kind of find it hard on my end to think of something that we can attach to other than I don't know, like.
Yeah, I think Jesse, I think what you're describing is what's known as interest convergence, right? And that often for Black progression, it takes us sort of aligning with the interests of white folks or their interests, right? And not that we're aligning, but they're aligning with our interests because of something that then benefits them. And so I think actually rural health is probably something that can really support us. We know that throughout the South, there is a lot of Black people living in rural areas and who will need health care. We're from Georgia, Black Health, and Georgia has experienced an immense amount of rural hospital closures in the last 15 years. And that leaves Black and brown people without care or having to drive to major cities or actually just deciding that they're not going to receive health care. And so as we think about how we leverage innovation and technology to improve care, I think we're going to see a large push for rural health, which people understand rural health, I think, conceptually as poor white people, but there are a lot of Black people who live in rural areas as well. And so I think if we can attach ourselves to rural health and bring out innovations and maybe healthcare for all, because ultimately, like you said, the policies that are going through right now are going to have a huge impact on poor people in red states. And so we have to be able to then take advantage of that and provide opportunity for Black people as well.
I'm glad you said that, brought up rural health. I was thinking gun. But okay, I'm sorry. But I'm glad you brought up rural health. They just gave $20 billion toward rural health. And we know that 70% of rural America is predominantly white. So that definitely attaching ourselves to those issues. Blackheart is already moving. Louisiana is very rural. We're moving, getting buses there next year, hopefully. And so we're already moving in that direction. But definitely, thank you, Matthew, because I was over here with gun policy in my head. And so I think that would be a great one, especially when they just gave $20 billion.
I think that's where the interests converge. Atiba?
No, I don't have anything else to add to that, aside from the fact that I'm just appreciative of the work that you all are doing. Because I get to work in a space, Jesse, where I get to meet people like this, and I get to meet and work with people like Kristen Crawford at Amgen, and who is doing an amazing job in terms of like building alliances with these amazing people who are doing amazing work, because it's an amazing. I don't want to say amazing. It's a heavy lift, but it's a lift that's made possible when we're working together. And we're often talking about the issues that are affecting and impacting African American, Hispanic American, other issues. But this is an American issue, and health is an American issue. And I just wish that we would address the issues of health the same way that we prepare for the Olympics. That we want to be number one in the Olympics, where we should want to be number one and healthy outcomes. And so the only way we're going to do that is having these type of conversations and talking about how do we address this, and also attach ourselves to the issues that are going on in rural America, and having them to also recognize that what happens in urban America also impacts them, because these dollars and what we're going to see in the next few days and months with Medicaid cuts is going to have a tremendous impact on the health outcomes of Americans all over this country. And what's happening also in Washington, we're here in DC, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of these conversations in terms of how policymakers can address this and what advocates are doing. America's health, we're deficient mentally and physically, but a lot of the mental part is contingent upon how our bodies feel, and that has to do with work, going to work, going to school, being productive American citizens. All of this, if we're going to make America healthy again, we need to address everyone.
I can tell you this, and I know that we are coming to the close of this hour, and I'm so grateful for Tara and Matthew for being on our program. If I were in Congress today, or if I were even a lobbyist, I would be looking for programs like that $20 billion train that Tara said was leaving the station, if it hasn't left already. And I would use the CBC weekend to be, as members of Congress, 62 of us, trying to find ways to attach a caboose, a couple of cars, and maybe even an engine to that train to make sure that we are part of that initiative. And in that way, we can work together with Republicans to bring about a piece of legislation that is more comprehensive on the questions of health. Tara and Matthew, thank you guys for joining Atiba and I on Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. So grateful. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, more with Atiba when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is marking a major milestone in the city's bike network. Chicago was set to top 500 miles of bike lanes this year.
The city of Chicago has installed more than 100 miles of new bikeways.
CDOT also resurfaced Milwaukee Avenue between Kinsey and Chicago Avenue, adding new concrete protected lanes on one of the city's busiest cycling routes. Free tours of the Obama Presidential Center and Chicago's Jackson Park begin Tuesday. Visitors can view renderings, walk the site, and ask questions. The center is set to open in spring 2026. And Megan Thee Stallion's lawyers want a judge to force DJ Academics to reveal how he got sealed evidence from Tory Lanez trial. They believe Lanez leaked DNA reports that were misrepresented online. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Two of the 5 African-American head coaches in the NFL are still looking for their first win of the season. Aaron Glenn of the New York Jets and D'Amico Ryan of the Houston Texans are 0-3. Glenn is in his first season with the Jets. Houston's slow start is a surprise. Ryan had Houston in the semifinals last season in the AFC playoffs. Houston is at home Sunday against Tennessee. The Jets are at Miami on Sunday. Tampa Bay coach Todd Bowles is the only one of the 5 who was undefeated after week 3. The Bucs are at home Sunday against the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Major props to University of South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. The 3-time national champion coach included 2 HBCU teams on her schedule for this season. A home game against North Carolina Central on December 7th and a road game at Coppin State in Baltimore on January 18th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580s. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and our very special guest is none other than Atiba. Atiba is one of the most vibrant members of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show's team of family members who are regular contributors to the show. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He is a strategic alliance consultant and president of Party Politics US. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, thank you. It's good to still be here with you.
And Atiba, I know that you are in high cotton as the former executive director for the National Black Caucus of Legislators at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, meeting all of your former colleagues, meeting and hanging out with contacts and members of Congress, legislators on both sides of the aisle. Atiba, thank you for the brilliance that you bring to our show.
Jesse, thank you. And you know, I've mentioned this before to you on the show, but it's funny. I thought about it again today, and I'm just really appreciative of having these opportunities to come in and talk with you, and also to invite guests on. And it just flashed in my head today because I actually saw my mentor, Ibrahim Mukman, who took me to one of my first Congressional Black Caucus events when I was a teenager, and remembered, you know, I think I've mentioned this to you before, you coming and speaking. So I was like, wow, these are just like these full circle moments.
Thank you also for sitting in for Todd Urey in this particular hour, in part because Todd, as you know, has 1 foot in the courtroom, 1 foot in the pulpit, and today he is in court, and the judge will not let him take that foot out of there. He's doing
the work that needs to be done.
Atiba, let me ask you this question, because you've worked with Black legislators and non-African American state legislators across the country. And this, as I opened previously, is unlike any other, in my opinion, gathering of leaders, both at the state and federal level in Washington, D.C. We've seen some fairly unprecedented activity from the executive under the Constitution. We've seen a Congress that has not really been a separate or co-equal part of the executive branch. We've seen power now being turned over in ways that we've not seen in a generation to the states, to state legislative bodies as well as caucuses, therefore empowering Black state legislative officials in ways that they did not have the power prior to this kind of emphasis on the 10th Amendment. Please share with us what you think is taking place in the body politic and what our appropriate reaction should be to it.
Well, you know, for a long time, we've seen a shift. We just didn't see it happen this dramatic, but the shift to the states has been going on for a long time. The thing that I think of most as we're seeing this is a time, this is an incredible time for a history lesson. And when I say a time for a history lesson, that history it was rhyming and now is just clearly repeating itself. And unfortunately, some of that is because people like the late, great John Lewis, who warned us about voting, that we didn't vote. There are times when people may know who their congressional representatives are, but I really want to implore those who don't, please know who your state legislators are. And don't take these state elections for granted, no more than you take your local election for granted. Because whoever is the mayor, often in cities, gets to appoint the police chief or commissioner. The governor gets to appoint certain individuals to positions of power within the state. as does the President of the United States gets to do so federally. And all these things, we talk about things like checks and balances and the Constitution. I'll be honest with you, Jesse, I don't like what I'm seeing, but I think that it's a necessary thing that has to happen in order to burn some of this down. And I shouldn't maybe not use the term burn, but to tear it down. And again, I'm interested in seeing where the conversations go this week during the Congressional Black Caucus, that we are focusing more on the sharing of ideas and being inspired to move forward, to go back into our states and do the work that's going to be necessary to create a wall to protect us. But, we've had people, and I've heard over the course of time, people say things like, well, why doesn't the president do this? They have this, why don't they do that? And we've heard the president say, well, we can't do that. Well, we're seeing what the president can do, especially when they have control of the House and the Senate, which has been the case before in history. But it's very interesting to see just, how far this is going, because, and I'll end this part with this. This is the first time that I feel like I've seen someone who doesn't really necessarily have the best interest of the country in mind. When I see the decisions that are going down, it doesn't feel like there's the best interest of the country in mind.
There certainly appears to be no fidelity to the Constitution. And, I thought back to when the president took the oath of office this time and did not put his hand on the Bible, and took no heat for that. These are deeply concerning and disconcerting times. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba is our guest in this hour, filling in for Todd Yeary, and I am particularly grateful that he has had some amazing guests that he's brought to the program, and I'm looking for so many more amazing guests from Atiba. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Atiba when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com. If you have a 2004 or newer vehicle that's out of warranty or about to be, Endurance is urgently notifying U.S. drivers about their low-cost vehicle coverage plan designed to save drivers thousands on rising vehicle repair costs. Those who qualify can pick their plan, coverage, and repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental cars included. All covered repairs get paid directly to the repair shop for you. Call now for your free quote. Call 800-373-7519. That's 800-373-7519.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. Atiba, the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, Government Exec, 96.3 WHUR, and One America News Network. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be here, Jesse.
Atiba, can I pay homage to my dad for a moment? But at the end of that homage, there is a question.
Please do.
When my father ran for president in 1984 and 1988, in 1984, he didn't want to run. He asked Maynard Jackson to run. They then went to other African-American leaders who, quite frankly, as municipal leaders, were really part of the Democratic Party's infrastructure. When the Democratic primary processes roll around, we kind of join the vice president or join the president's team. And all of these mayors and congressmen all have something at stake in who the president is and their ability to deliver for their constituents. So here comes Jesse Jackson out of nowhere talking about our time has come. And he decides to run for president. In 1984, as quiet as it's kept, half of the Congressional Black Caucus was supportive of Reverend Jackson's campaign, and the other half simply was not. They were tethered to the Democratic Party. Over the course of that campaign, my father registered more voters in all 50 states than any African American at that moment in history, in part because he became a national symbol, a galvanizing force for our issues. We didn't have to wait at the Democratic convention and participate in what Dad would call the black trailer, where we hoped Mondale would say something in his speech about the black community and civil rights, where we hoped Dukakis would say something. We were in the campaign. We had more than our trailer. We had the environment and healthcare and housing. We were covering the panorama, if you will, of issues, but we had our guy in the race, and we knew that he would address those issues. The homage I'm paying to Dad is this. We have more African Americans in Congress than we've ever had. We've had more state legislators than we've ever had. And there's a certain level of dysfunction. Even though we have so much, we're losing so much so quickly that, this one voice, I'm not suggesting that there's just one leader. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the homage that I'm paying to Jesse Jackson is that he had the courage to organize all of the voices at that time in history, to bring it to a sharp pencil and focus that became so much of the progressive cause in the Democratic Party. And I'm wondering, given your experience with legislators, do you see the dysfunction, even with the high numbers that we have and the highest numbers that we've ever had in history? I'm convinced that I'm not convinced that we can actually meet the moment because every one of us has a radio show, a podcast, a different point of view, and everybody's talking, everybody's on TV. But that moment that comes together in the leader that mattered to our national focus.
I mean, there's a lot there, but I'm going to go back to what I said before, that this thing isn't rhyming. History is literally repeating itself. And part of the issue is we keep waiting for someone to be the leader, I think. as opposed to recognizing that all of us have something to do with this. I keep remembering President Obama, his last speech as president, public speech, and he said, "This was never about me. It was never about Michelle. It was always about you." And that makes me think that we need to go back to 2008 to hope and change. But what you just said makes me think we need to go back to 1984. We need to go back to figuring out how we're going to register more people. How are we going to get more people engaged? There was a special election yesterday in Georgia, and the Democrats seem to be happy the fact that the Democratic candidate unfortunately lost, but made a big dent in a district that was like plus 34 for the president in 2024. But we can't just say that we're just the opposite. This is an opportunity to embrace and to wrap ourselves in the flag and paint a picture and a vision for what this country should look like or can look like. I don't see that. I do see, and I don't remember his name, I believe it starts with an A, he's running for Senate in Texas. I actually like what I'm hearing him say. He's saying things like, this isn't about this issue or that issue. We're not asking the question about controlling and figuring out how you can pay your rent, your mortgage, your basic necessities, food. And I keep saying, and I've said this before, this is about the economy. And the economy, and this is right now, we're in a place where the next generation is not positioned to be better off than our generation. The next generation is in position to be worse off than our generation. And this is an opportunity to really paint that picture of what America can look like and how we get there together.
I agree with that. And, having lived through 84 and 88 and having watched Barack Obama's ascendancy, I was the national co-chairman of his campaign for the U.S. Senate with the late Paul Simon. Just the two of us served in that capacity in 2006 when he ran for the U.S. Senate. And I was also the national co-chairman of his campaign for president in 2008, along with a dozen other people who served in that capacity. And what I can tell you, given the long arc of history, I knew Shirley Chisholm. I had met her as a very young man, and I watched that campaign. I watched Jesse in 84 and 88. I watched Obama, and I see the arc of Black political participation. And lest should we forget the convention in Gary, Indiana in 1972, I think it was, that also helped sharpen the pencil. It seems to me, Atiba, that it started with us first. In 1984, Jesse Jackson's campaign focused on African-American congressional districts, state legislative districts. And from that experience, by 1988, he was talking about, we can't do it alone. Let's build a rainbow coalition. And what I hear increasingly from our leadership today is that we're all starting with a rainbow coalition. We all want labor and the LGBTQ, and we want the environmentalists, and all of that. But Jesse started with the base first. And then by starting with the base, he ended up with all of that. The rainbow, recognizing everyone's interests, the rural, the urban, the farmer, the urban dweller. He recognized those interests. And I'm thinking strategically that the rainbow is never going to start necessarily with us. They're always going to pick their personality, their guy in the moment. Somebody, some force has to organize us. And from our solid base within the Democratic Party, we build a rainbow coalition. I've said it over and over and over again. I think it's going to be a painbow coalition when this big, ugly bill becomes part of our political reality. That's what I think, Atiba.
Well, and what I think is drastic, outside the box, real, and I took my step to do this in 2016 as someone who was registered Republican, who has never voted straight ticket, don't think that anyone ever should if there are other candidates that are better, just because of a political party. I like to go back to what George Washington said, which is the reason why he was against political parties, because I think that within the party system, people are putting the interests of the party before the interests of the country. So I'm a registered independent. And I think that there is going to be, at least what I'm hearing from younger people, there is going to be an exodus. I didn't say mass. There is an exodus of people that are moving from the political party framework for a number of reasons. Too much money in politics. And how do you take it out? You've got this political primary system that requires spending billions of dollars every year. And then after the $1 billion spent across the country on primaries, then you have a general election that wants billions more. And people are tired. People want to hear the message, and they want to be inspired, and they want to be given hope. I have been saying and testing this with people lately, not just us, but others. And it's really interesting when I say that they did not attack Barack Obama because of the color of his skin. And they're like, oh, come on, where are you coming with that? They attacked President Obama because he offered hope. And they don't want us to hope. And in 2016 and then again in 2024, somehow the country decided to go back to fear. But in 2020, fear was such a big thing because it was 2024, it was, I'm getting my numbers right. I'm trying to think when with the pandemic. Election 2020, folks were so fearful of a pandemic, of a virus that was claiming the lives of their children and their elderly and just people in general, that they were like, no, that was more fearful than what we had. And somehow we turned the page and went back to that. And I don't know why we stopped talking about that. But so what we have now is also a virus. And what we have now is also a pandemic. It's just a different proportion, but it's far worse than that pandemic that we had in 2020. And we can't address that by continuing to go forward or try to move forward with fear. And right now we're like a deer in headlights. We just don't know where to move or how to move. We just keep thinking we're better, but we're not better unless we get together.
I absolutely, I associate myself with everything Atiba just said. It makes nothing but sense to me. I'd like to think that I'm one of the more hopeful people, and I think that, hope has its value. It seems to me that so much is being dismantled that hope in this sense also has a policy perspective or policy angle. I mean, does hope include, from your perspective, Atiba, undoing the damage that has been done? And we're only into 1 year of it. We got 3 more years of this. Does hope take on the embodiment of the antithesis of what we're experiencing? And then how, if that is true, is that hope communicated? And I ask this question because the normalization of what has happened requires, from my perspective, an undoing to get back to the very era that allowed Obama to speak such a hopeful message, or for Jesse Jackson to try to keep hope alive. We can't accept this as the new normal by which Democrats themselves or independents themselves say anything is better than that. But if we get to the final destination, we're not going to undo the damage that has been done.
We are approaching the 250th anniversary of this country. It's an old country, 250 years. America is looking for a renewal. And I'm not just saying America, Americans. We spend so much time putting ourselves and building ourselves into silos. The Black community, the Hispanic community, the religious communities, the sexual orientation communities. When in essence, we are just a human community. We are part of a global community. We are global citizens, whether we travel globally or not. What we do here impacts and affects people somewhere else. What happens there impacts and affects us here. Air, land, water, we're all connected on this beautiful, spacious earth. And what we are finding is that the earth is much smaller than what we initially thought. I know for me, 50 years ago. And in order for us to deconstruct, we have to have a plan to reconstruct. So we have this whole idea that we want to save what we have because that's what we feel safe. And I think we have to deconstruct it in order to reconstruct it, because the reality is the country was built with one perspective, and now we have multiple perspectives. And we have a Congress that is made up of more women than any time in the history of this country. More people of other who were born in other countries than any other time in this country. So the diversity and all this, we just have to figure out how we coexist, but how we exist together with and embracing the flag, but embracing how we're going to create a vision for a new America.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are at the Congressional Black Caucus in 2025. Anxiety's high, tensions high. The Voting Rights Act is under attack. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Conversations with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Atiba when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. 2 people are dead and 1 is critically injured after a shooting at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility. Black Mayor Eric Johnson called for prayers as officials confirmed the gunman, 29-year-old Joshua John, died from a self-inflicted wound.
We're a country and a city that needs prayer.
The FBI is investigating it as targeted violence. Former Vice President Kamala Harris is in New York tonight, kicking off a 15-city tour for her new memoir, 107 Days. The book recounts her brief 2024 presidential run, blasting Joe Biden's re-election bid as a reckless mistake. And Black singer David says his anime alter ego inspired his hit Romantic Homicide. Fans linked the video's ghostly woman to Celeste Rivas, later found dead in his car, but police say there's no evidence connecting him to her murder. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. 2 of the 5 African-American head coaches in the NFL are still looking for their first win of the season. Aaron Glenn of the New York Jets and D'Amico Ryan of the Houston Texans are 0-3. Glenn is in his first season with the Jets. Houston's slow start is a surprise. Ryan had Houston in the semifinals last season in the AFC playoffs. Houston is at home Sunday against Tennessee. The Jets are at Miami on Sunday. Tampa Bay coach Todd Bowles is the only one of the 5 who was undefeated after week 3. The Bucs are at home Sunday against the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Major props to University of South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. The 3-time national champion coach included 2 HBCU teams on her schedule for this season. A home game against North Carolina Central on December 7th and a road game at Coppin State in Baltimore on January 18th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Whoa,
whoa. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom. Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays, conversations with Atiba and Reverend Dr. S. Todd Urey, who is not joining us this week. He has 1 foot in the courtroom and 1 foot in the pulpit, but today the judge has ordered him to have both feet in the courtroom, and that's where he is. I want to make this announcement about the Left Coast Forum, Resistance Saturday, October 25th, 2025, sponsored by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive, and produced in collaboration with progressive organizations from throughout the region. Sponsor panels include After the Fires, Medicare for All, Invasion of Los Angeles, Equity in Education, The Power of Theater, Distorting the Constitution, Racism on the Left, Rent Control, Elements, Organizing, Palestine, Genocide, Jobs, and freedom, and more. The keynote speakers include Richard Wolff and Dr. Cornel West. The event is free, and we will keep you abreast of that programming, to which KBLA is a sponsor. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Atiba, I do want to ask this question about our understanding of history. My experience and our experience as African Americans, that whenever the nation goes through this period of Reconstruction, whether it's from 1865 to Tilden Hayes and then Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, first Reconstruction, then comes this period of Jim Crow, some separate and unequal period of states' rights and racial resistance to progress. And then there's Brown versus the Board of Education, which is widely accepted as the turning point in Second Reconstruction. Brown, 1954, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, 65, public accommodations legislation, all the way up to Obama. But our history says that in between these periods of Reconstruction, there's always some period of Jim Crow, like a Jim Crow 2.0. In the last couple of weeks, we've heard about 2 lynchings in Mississippi. We've seen attacks on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We've seen federal troops dropped into cities across our country. And yet, in your hopeful enthusiasm, which I share, and which Peniel Joseph and I, when he wrote a book on Third Reconstruction, discussed on this program as well, we discussed a third Reconstruction. But it seems seemingly in America, as you correctly acknowledged, there's this burn down that occurs. There's this, Dr. King raised this question of the burn down that occurs, and can usually tend to be a very violent period in American history, particularly for Black people and brown people and people of color. The shorter that period comes to an end, the better it is for all of us. Let's get to Reconstruction. But we're living in a period where, even on this day, MAGA students are showing up on HBCU campuses with tables, exercising, not even students of these schools, exercising their First Amendment rights in the name of Charlie Kirk. That's a lot. That's a lot. We don't do that to the University of Utah. We don't do that at other people's schools. That's a lot. And it's really in our faces. Your thought about the climate, Atiba?
So the first thing that comes to mind is George Floyd. And the reason why George Floyd comes to mind is I think about how many times they showed the video, for one. And then 2, the fact that the outcry led to mass protests, not just in the United States, but globally. And in those mass demonstrations, it was different. It was different than the 60s, even though there was some diversity in the 60s. It was very diverse. When I speak from a place of hope, I have to. Because as a student of history, I've never seen where we ever won with fear. And so I very much believe that how I exercise my mind, my body will follow. So when I'm saying deconstruct, I'm saying we got to deconstruct the social construct. We've been talking about it for a long time, but we've never talked about how do we reconstruct it. And I learned very quickly in the midterm elections in 2018 that what the Republican Party was doing was creating fires. So it was at that time, and I cannot remember the name that was termed with taking diversity education, and they were attacking that. And I kept being asked to speak on conservative shows and this, and every time that's all they wanted to talk about. And then 2018, we saw what happened in elections, and maybe it's just 2022, but we saw what happened in elections in Virginia. We saw what happened across the country in terms of midterms. Now, if you can show me how fear wins or how hate wins historically, then I'll go with that. But I don't see that. And I think that the messages that we have to come forward with or should be messages that inspire people to put one foot in front of the other. The same way that Dr. King was able to use the pulpit to inspire people to go and march. The same way that Fannie Lou Hamer stood up in the Democratic Party and said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired," and that moved people. The same way Shirley Chisholm got up and said, "Well, I'm going to run for president." You know, and with her, the thought that she said, if there's not a seat at the table, take your own chair. So that's what I feel like we have to do this. We keep wondering, well, when is this going to stop? It's not going to stop until we reconstruct how we're thinking. So, for instance, we use this term MAGA, make America great again. And then you have other people that say, well, America's never been great. Okay, well, why don't you create your own blue and white hat and put make America great? But don't just put make America great on it. What does make America great? What will be America being great look like for you? And let's tell, what does that look like? And let's stop talking about a minimum wage and let's talk about a livable wage. And let's not talk about, oh, well, the president is sending these people into our cities and crime is low. Crime is low compared to what? Because if you ask me, I'm going to be honest. I'm in Washington, D.C., and crime is not low to me. This morning, I saw a car busted out window. Why? Because somebody broke into a car. Somebody posted about some young guys at a football game literally in a brawl in D.C. last week. So this whole idea, we have to be honest with ourselves before we can ask someone else to be honest with us. We got some real serious issues that need to be addressed because we're like really good at being the best at everything, good and bad. And I think that I want to be associated with a country that is putting the best of us forward and that other people want to follow that because they recognize that being our best makes us better than the rest of the country, as opposed to better than the rest of other countries, whatever that is. We've somehow lost this sense that to chase excellence because I think we just keep accepting mediocrity.
Well, you offered a lot right there, some of which I'll have to unpack as best I possibly can when we come forward. These are my continuing conversations with Atiba. He's the best and brightest. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more conversations with Atiba in the final segment of our program. Thank you, Atiba. Look forward to seeing you in just a few seconds.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-297-1563 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-297-1563. That's 800-297-1563. What do you have to lose? Call 800-297-1563. Again, 800-297-1563.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Tomorrow, when we come forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Thought-Provoking Thursdays will welcome Professor P.L. Da Silva. P.L. Da Silva is one of our great contributors brought to us by Jose Matthews. I had the opportunity of spending a few minutes before the program with Jose and his son, Mr. Matthews. Probably go out and have something to eat shortly after the program. Really glad to see both of them. And I also want to take this opportunity to welcome Atiba forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Atiba has been with me for 2 hours, and I am extremely grateful for conversations with Atiba on this wealthy Wednesdays, and that Todd Urey could not be with us today because he's commanded by the judge to be in court handling his business. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Jesse. It's great to be here.
You know, listening to you put a thought on my mind, and of course, you know I'm going to allow you to end with a word of hope after you respond to this little diatribe. there is no one story, right? There is no one historical story. History is made up in each of our lives of the data points that we choose to assemble, and then we process them through the reality that we see. When I think about the Democratic Party of 1792 and 93, the slave-owning, agrarian, pro-property rights party, and slaves were commodities, and that's how they saw our people, as commodities. I think about that struggle all the way up from 1792 to the confrontation with the Republican Party of 1854, the party of Lincoln. Today's Republican Party of Lincoln that stopped and sought to stop the expansion of slavery into the Western states is long gone. Now we are looking at a very different Republican Party. And we are, from 1792 to the present, looking at a very different Democratic Party, the party of Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries, the party of Donald Trump, the party of Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene are different than they were then at the inception of the parties. In fact, their roles have primarily switched. So we assemble these data points and we call them history. In your history or historical narrative, In Search of Hope, you might choose the George Floyd data point, and it is a critical data point in modern conceptual reality. There's a lot of George Floyds over the course of our history. Each of them represents significant data points in our thinking. And how far we go back to get those data points, even all the way to Delta State, where a young man was lynched last week. At least the facts are still to be determined as to whether or not he committed suicide. But lynching on a tree is usually not the way people tend to go. But it's endemic, if you will, of the state of Mississippi and the pattern that has been established in that state that is deeply troubling. And so it's very difficult for me, given the backdrop of that history and my understanding of it, not to believe that Jim Crow 2.0 is going to be a very, very difficult period for all Americans, even as those of us who try to articulate our messages of hope, of bringing people together in the face of outright aggression and unkindness to us and the rewriting of narratives. On April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. in his last speech talked about about reaching a mountaintop, about might not being able to get there with us, but he believed that we as a people, black, brown, white, and others, are going to get to the promised land. And then he was assassinated the next day. Those words brought people together, and his martyrdom was guaranteed as a result of the way he lived. And we're looking at a different narrative today as a result of the events of 2 weeks ago in Utah. The martyrdom of someone whose lyrics started literally 32,000 chapters, Atiba, in the last week. At universities, high schools all across our country. The superintendent of schools of the state of Oklahoma says now that he supports a MAGA Turning Point organization in every high school in the state of Oklahoma. Now, at the same time, we're being told that our historical narratives need to be taken out of the African American History Museum, and the slave narratives need to be taken off of Civil War battle sites, and the historical narrative of Black people needs to change. Our books are being banned. We're being told that we need to accept the whitewashed version, for example, of what Mr. Kirk stood for. I find that quite challenging and quite unacceptable. I want to be hopeful in this environment, but I'm also recognizing the need, as Jimmy Kimmel has and others, to tell it like it is, to tell the truth that is being covered up on a scale that is unprecedented. With that said, that's kind of my opine for this day. The final 3 minutes, because I know that he is always welcome on our program to provide us with a word of hope, is Atiba. Atiba, a word of hope.
Thank you, Jesse, and I always appreciate your insight. I'm just going to say this. Someone keeps making the problem, then claims to be the only one who can fix it. And I want to offer to us to say, why can't we offer the solution and then be the ones who solve it?
Mm.
And I think that part of that means that we have to figure out how to clean some things up within ourselves. And I'm going to go on a limb and say, too many of us are using, we're talking about college campuses. Well, if I go on Howard University's campus or other HBCU campuses, I'm sickened by the fact that I hear young ladies calling across campus to the other one, "Hey, B." I'm sickened when I hear a guy on campus say, "Hey, N." And we don't talk about that enough. We've got to clean that up. We've got to clean up the idea. My hope is to see young men pull their pants up, take the blinging out of their mouths, shaving their hair of their faces and cutting their hair. And I'm saying this because as we see each other, as we see ourselves, is how others also will see us. And so I think that this abyss of despair, this whole self-hatred, this whole hatred that we have that's going on in America is that we're looking at other people and we don't like what we see, and they're looking at others and us and they don't like what we see. And this conversation that is happening is one where we're just really getting to know each other in this non-perfect union that will never be perfect. But I think when I say things like we've got to get to a place where we seek excellence again, I think that there are more people that feel that way. And so my hope is that we have a conversation, and that conversation is really one where we're very honest within ourselves, because we can't ask someone else to be honest with us if we're not first honest with ourselves.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This has been a conversation with Atiba on the Black Caucus and during the Black Caucus weekend in 2025. Atiba, thank you for joining me for these 2 hours.
Thank you, Jesse.
When we come forward, it will be tomorrow at the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you for joining us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.